My mother texted me at 11:47 the night before to tell me my sister was coming instead. Not a call, a text. 11 words. Baby, we talked it over. Destiny needs this more than you. You understand. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand, because I wanted to make sure I understood exactly. I had spent 4 months planning a 5-day cabin trip in the Blue Ridge Mountains for my mother's 60th birthday. I had found the property, negotiated the rate, coordinated everyone's schedules, booked the activities, arranged the transportation. I had done all of this while managing a $4.2 million commercial construction project, because that is the kind of person I am, the kind who does things all the way or not at all. And at 11:47 on a Wednesday night, my mother sent me 11 words and expected me to reply, "Of course, no problem." I put my phone down. I looked at the ceiling of my bedroom in my apartment in Atlanta, where I live alone, where I have lived alone for 6 years, where I have built a life that runs with the kind of precision that people admire and families exploit. Then I picked my phone back up and typed exactly 1 word back. Okay. Because here's what my family has never understood about me. I am not reactive. I am patient. I do not fight in the moment. I wait until the moment is right, and then I make sure the consequences are permanent. My name is Maya Reeves. I'm 36 years old. I'm a senior project manager in Atlanta, which means I am professionally trained to watch a situation deteriorate in slow motion and know exactly when to intervene and exactly how. My family thought okay meant I was fine with it. What it actually meant was, I've made my decision. This is the story of what happened next. Let me tell you about the cabin first, because you need to understand what was taken before you can understand why I did what I did. The property was in Blue Ridge, Georgia. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound deck, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the mountain range, a fire pit, a hot tub, the kind of place that looks like a movie set but is real and quiet, and costs exactly what you'd expect it to cost for 5 days in peak fall foliage season. I found it in May. I booked it in June, put down a non-refundable deposit, and spent the next 3 months building an itinerary that included a private chef for my mother's actual birthday dinner, a guided hike for my father, who had been saying for years he wanted to get outdoors more, and 2 full days with no agenda at all because my mother's version of rest is sitting somewhere beautiful with nothing required of her. I knew this about her because I pay attention to her, even when she does not pay the same attention back. The total cost, between the rental, the chef, the activities, and the transportation, I arranged to pick everyone up. Just over $3,000. I want you to know that number not because I am asking for sympathy, but because I want you to understand what destiny needs this more than you actually meant in practical terms. It meant $3,000 of Maya's money, 4 months of Maya's planning, and the only birthday gift my mother said she actually wanted a trip to see the mountains in fall, something she mentioned once at a Sunday dinner 7 years ago. Something only I remembered all of it had been quietly reassigned, without a conversation, without even a phone call. 11 words, at 11:47 at night, and a presumption that I would say okay and mean it. Here is what I need you to understand about my family before I tell you the rest. My sister Destiny is 29 years old. She is not a bad person. I want to be precise about that because I think it matters. She is a person who has been allowed, by every adult in our family, to remain in a permanent state of becoming always about to figure it out, always in the middle of something difficult, always in a place where requiring things of her would be cruel. She has been in this state for 4 years. During those 4 years, I have contributed to her rent twice. I covered a car repair. I paid for a therapy program that I believed in and that she attended for 6 weeks before deciding she needed something different. I co-signed a credit application that I shouldn't have and spent 14 months watching that card balance move in one direction. I did all of these things not because anyone asked me directly, though sometimes they did, but because in my family, there is an architecture of expectation that does not require explicit requests. Everyone simply knows their role. Destiny is the one who needs. Maya is the one who provides. When I accomplished something, a promotion, a bonus, a project that came in under budget and ahead of schedule, the family response was warm and brief. "That's great, Maya. We're so proud." And then, usually within the same conversation or the next one, a pivot. Speaking of which, Des is going through something right now. My success was not celebrated. It was noted, and then it was redirected. I have thought about when this started. The honest answer is, I don't think it had a beginning. It was simply the water we swam in. Destiny needed more. Maya could handle more. That was the operating assumption of our family, so fundamental that no one had ever examined whether it was true, or fair, or sustainable. It was none of those things. But I had never said so. Because saying so would have required everyone to look at something they had agreed, without words, not to look at. The night my mother texted me, I lay in bed and did the math I had been avoiding for years. Not just the $3,000. All of it. The rent contributions, the car, the therapy, the credit card, every emergency transfer. Every time I had said yes before finishing the thought, it came to somewhere around $47,000 over 6 years, not counting time, not counting the trips I hadn't taken, the things I hadn't bought, the financial cushion I hadn't built because I had been quietly subsidizing a version of my family that only worked if I kept paying for it. $47,000. And a cabin in the mountains for my mother's 60th birthday that my sister was now going to sleep in. I closed my eyes. I thought about the text. Destiny needs this more than you. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I should have called you. Not even. I know this isn't fair. Just the assumption, stated plainly, that my needs were always the variable in the equation, the thing that adjusted to accommodate everyone else. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. I had decided what I was going to do. I was going to show up. I wanted to see their faces when I did. I drove to my parents' house at 6:15. I want to be clear about why. I was not going to beg. I was not going to cry in the driveway and ask my mother to change her mind. I was going to look at this directly, the thing I had spent years looking away from, and I was going to let them see me do it. My parents live in a neighborhood in Decatur that I helped them stay in. That is not a rhetorical statement. 3 years ago, when my father's hours were cut and the mortgage fell behind, I wired 2 months of payments without being asked twice. The house is in their name. The money was from mine. I pulled up at 6:17. My mother was on the porch with a travel mug. My father was loading a bag into the trunk. And Destiny was standing in the yard in a new jacket I hadn't seen before. On her phone, looking like someone who had just won something she wasn't entirely sure she deserved. My mother saw me, and her face did something complicated. Not guilt. I want to be accurate, more like the expression of someone who had hoped the difficult part was already behind them. Maya. She said my name like it was a weather event she had been tracking. Good morning, I said. I walked to the trunk. My father looked at me, and then looked away, which told me everything about where his spine had been the night before, when she sent that text. Baby, my mother said, following me. I know this is hard, but you know how Destiny's been. I do know, I said. I've been paying attention. She heard the edge in that. She chose not to follow it. She needs something positive right now. A reset. You're so strong, Maya. You bounce back. You always do. I turned around slowly and looked at her. Say that again, I said. She blinked. Say what? The part where you explain why my strength is the reason I don't deserve what I planned and paid for. Her chin lifted slightly. I'm not saying that. That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying because I handle things, I don't get to have things. Because Destiny struggles, she gets the reward. That's the math, Mom. I just want to make sure we're both looking at it clearly. Destiny had drifted closer. I saw her in my peripheral vision, still on her phone, but listening. My mother's voice shifted softer, more careful. This isn't about reward. It's about what she needs right now. What about what I need? The question landed in the morning air between us and nobody answered it. Because in 36 years, that question had never required an answer in this family. It had always been assumed that Maya's needs were either already met or simply smaller than everyone else's. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable for them. It was familiar. It was the silence of a system working exactly as designed. That was when I understood something I should have understood years ago. This was never going to change through conversation. Okay, I said. My mother looked relieved. My father exhaled. I'm glad you understand, she said, and reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back once. Not dramatically. Just enough. I didn't say I understand, I said. I said okay. Those are different things. I got back in my car. I drove home. And I opened my laptop. Here is what I did not do. I did not cancel the reservation. Everyone who hears this story assumes I canceled it. I didn't. Cancellation felt like destruction, and I was not interested in destruction. I was interested in accuracy. I called the property management company at 8 a.m. I explained that the booking needed to be transferred to a different primary guest. Me, not my mother. And that I needed the confirmation sent to my email address only. The woman I spoke to was efficient and professional, and did not ask any questions I didn't want to answer. By 8:45, the booking was in my name. At 9, I called the private chef and rescheduled the birthday dinner for the following month, a different date, a different location, A dinner for two. Me and my best friend Simone, who was 7 months pregnant and had been asking me for weeks to take her somewhere that wasn't her couch. The guided hike I converted to a solo booking for the first morning. The transportation I canceled, because I was driving myself. Then I sat back in my chair and looked at what I had done. I had not hurt anyone. I had not yelled at anyone. I had not sent a text with 11 words, designed to land at midnight and be absorbed by morning. I had simply redirected resources that were mine back to the person they belonged to. My phone rang at 10:14. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. I was not ready to talk yet. I was still making decisions, and I needed to be finished making them before I answered anyone. She called again at 10:19. Then my father at 10:22. Then, Destiny, which surprised me slightly. I had expected her to let my parents handle the situation, which was, after all, her lifelong strategy. I let all of them go. At 10:40, I got a text from my mother. Maya, we're at the address and the property manager says the reservation isn't in our name. What is going on? Call me right now. I read it. I set my phone face down. I made coffee. I want to tell you about those 20 minutes because I think they matter more than any confrontation that came after. I stood at my kitchen counter and I felt something I did not expect to feel. Not triumph, not satisfaction, not yet. Something quieter and stranger than either of those. It was the feeling of a person who has been holding a door open for a very long time, with both hands, for people who kept walking through without looking at who was holding it and has finally, simply, let it close. Not slammed. Closed. The difference matters. Marcus came downstairs. He had stayed over, was supposed to drive up with me and found me standing there with my coffee. He looked at my face and at my phone face down on the counter and he said nothing. He just walked over and put his hand on my shoulder, once, and then went to the cabinet and poured himself a cup. That is the detail I keep returning to. Not the confrontation at the property. Not what my mother said when I finally answered. The hand on my shoulder. The silence. The cup of coffee, poured without making anything about him. That was what I had never had from my family. Someone who understood that sometimes presence is enough. At 11:07, I answered my mother's call. She was already talking before the call fully connected. Don't understand what you think you're doing, Maya. But this is not. Hi, Mom. A short pause. Then, controlled. Explain what is happening right now. I transferred the booking to my name, I said. Since it's my booking, that is family property. No, I said. It's my property. I paid for it. My card. My planning. My 4 months of work. It was a gift I chose to give. I've now chosen differently, Maya. Her voice dropped into the register she used when she wanted to sound like the reasonable adult in a conversation she was losing. You are being incredibly childish right now. Interesting, I said. You texted me at midnight to tell me I'd been replaced on a trip I planned and paid for, and I'm the childish one. We made a family decision. You made a decision about my money, I said, without me. That's not a family decision. That's a unilateral decision about someone else's resources. Those are different things. I heard her breathe. I heard, in the background, my father's voice and then Destiny's. Your sister needs this, my mother said. The sentence had the quality of something she had rehearsed. You know what she's been going through. I know exactly what she's been going through, I said. I have the bank statements to prove how closely I've been paying attention. Silence. What does that mean? It means I know what I've contributed to this family, Mom. I know the number. I've been keeping track not because I plan to use it against anyone, but because I'm a person who measures things that matter to me, and somewhere along the way, this started mattering. My father got on the line. Maya, let's be calm. I am calm, I said. I've been calm for 36 years. That's the whole problem. What do you want us to do? He said. And I noticed he didn't say what did we do wrong. He said what do you want us to do? Already framing it as my demand to be managed, not his mistake to be owned. I don't want you to do anything right now, I said. I want you to find somewhere to stay tonight that you pay for. That's it. That's the full request. Maya, that is completely. Mom. She stopped. I need you to hear what I'm about to say clearly, because I'm going to say it once, and I'm not going to repeat it or soften it. Are you listening? A beat. Yes. You texted me at midnight. You didn't call. You didn't ask. You sent me 11 words and expected me to absorb it and say okay. Because that is what I have always done. I have always absorbed it. Every time Destiny needed rent, I absorbed it. Every time there was an emergency that somehow always ended up being my emergency too, I absorbed it. Every time I built something, a trip, a plan, a financial buffer, and someone decided she needed it more, I absorbed it. I am done absorbing. My mother's voice, when it came, was shaking. I cannot believe you are doing this to your family over a vacation. This isn't about a vacation. Then what is it about? It's about the fact that you called me strong my whole life and I only just realized you meant it as a reason I could have less. Not a compliment, an explanation for the math. Dead silence. Basted. Too steady in the background, voice high and sudden. Can I just say something? Destiny, my mother started. No, let her, I said. Destiny took the phone. Her voice when she spoke was a complicated mixture of defensive, and something underneath the defensive that she probably didn't know was audible. I know you think I don't deserve good things, she said. I know that's what this is about. That's not what this is about, I said. Then what? You deserve good things, Destiny, genuinely, but you do not deserve my things. My money is not family money. My planning is not family planning. My work is not a resource you get to inherit. That is the distinction. Not whether you deserve good things. Whether you deserve mine specifically, without asking, without acknowledging what they cost me. She was quiet. You've never had to think about it, I said. I know that. Because there has always been someone to make sure you didn't have to. I'm not doing that anymore. She handed the phone back to my mother. Where are we supposed to go? My mother said. And her voice had changed, the sharpness had dropped out of it, and what was left was something raw and practical that I found, honestly, easier to deal with than the performance. I don't know, I said. But I trust you to figure it out. You always said I could. I think you can too. I ended the call. Marcus was in the kitchen when I came back downstairs. He looked up. How'd it go? He said. Exactly like I expected, I said. He nodded. You okay? I thought about it honestly. Ask me in a week, I said. By 1 in the afternoon, I had 23 missed calls. By 3:41. I did not answer any of them. Not because I was hiding, I had said what I needed to say. There was nothing to add. Every call was a variation on the same request. Come back to your role, fix what you've broken, return to the version of yourself that we can predict. I was not interested in being predictable anymore. The texts were more informative than the calls. My mother's started as demands and cycled through hurt and then something that approached, but never quite reached, reflection. This is not who we raised you to be. You are breaking this family apart. Your sister is devastated. She hasn't eaten. That one I held on for a moment. She hasn't eaten. I thought about how many times over 6 years my family's distress had become a problem I was expected to solve. Destiny's depression, my mother's anxiety, my father's financial stress, all of it had passed through me like voltage through a wire. I had conducted it away from them and absorbed it myself and called this being strong. I put the phone down. My father's texts were shorter and worse in their way, because they were honest about what he actually wanted. We just need a hotel recommendation. Somewhere not too expensive. You know Atlanta better than we do? He was not asking me to repair the relationship. He was asking me to manage the logistics. Even now, even after all of it. I did not answer. Simone called at 4. I picked up on the second ring. I heard, she said immediately. From who? Your mom called my mom. A pause. Which, honestly, is insane. I started to laugh. It surprised me. The laugh came from somewhere lower than humor. Somewhere closer to the specific exhaustion of someone who has been in a fight they didn't choose and can finally see the shape of it from the outside. She called your mom, I said. She did. My mom called me. I'm calling you. The Reeves family communication network is very efficient. What did she say? That you were going through something after the accident and everyone was worried about you. Simone's voice was dry as concrete. There was no accident mentioned. No, just, Maya is going through something. Which is the family version of the water isn't wet, you're just interpreting it wrong. I sat with that for a moment. They're already building the narrative, I said. They started before you finished the call, Simone said. Maya, listen to me. You know what your family is doing right now? They are not sitting in a hotel lobby being sad about you. They are dividing up the task of getting you back in position. Your mom is working the extended family. Your dad is probably calling someone he knows to see if there's any angle. And Destiny isn't eating, I said. Destiny, Simone said, will eat when she's hungry. She's 29 years old. You have to stop treating her fragility like it's your medical emergency. I didn't answer for a moment. That's the hardest part, I finally said. She's not performing it. It's real. She really does struggle. I know, Simone said, and her voice was gentler. And that's true, and it has nothing to do with whether it was okay for them to take your trip. Both things can be true. Des can genuinely struggle and it can still be wrong to hand her your life every time she does. I looked out the window of my apartment at the street below. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Atlanta, September, the light doing that particular late summer thing where it's still hot but the angle has changed and everything looks slightly different than it did in August. I keep thinking about whether I went too far, I said. Did they go too far when they texted you at midnight? That's different. Why? I didn't have an answer. Maya, Simone said. You didn't blow up your family. You just stopped making yourself small enough to fit inside the version of the family they built around your smallness. That's not the same thing. I stayed on the phone with her for another 40 minutes. By the time we hung up, the call count on my phone was at 67. I silenced it. Then I went to my closet and started packing for a 5-day trip to the mountains. I drove up to Blue Ridge on Thursday morning. I want to be specific about what that drive felt like, because I think it's easy to assume that when you finally do the thing you should have done years ago, it feels like victory. Like the opening scene of a movie where someone walks away from an explosion in slow motion. It did not feel like that. It felt like driving through a landscape with someone else's grief in the passenger seat. Not my grief about the trip, my grief about the family. The one I had been quietly mourning for years without admitting that's what I was doing. I had spent my entire adult life investing in a relationship that I kept hoping would eventually become what I needed it to be. Every dollar, every solved problem, every swallowed frustration, they were not just gestures of generosity, they were bids. I was making bids, over and over, for a version of my family that saw me as more than a function. The bids never landed. Not because my family didn't love me, but because in the economy of our family, my bids were accepted as payments and my receipts were filed under, that's just Maya. I turned onto the mountain road and felt the altitude change in my ears. The cabin was exactly what I had chosen it to be. High windows, a deck that faced east into the trees, a fire pit that I figured out on the second evening after 3 attempts, and one call to the property manager, who walked me through it patiently without laughing at me. The kitchen was large enough that cooking was a pleasure rather than a task. I hiked the first morning alone. 2 hours into the trail, I sat on a rock and looked at the valley below, and tried to feel whatever it was I thought I was supposed to feel. What I felt instead was tired. Not the tired of someone who has done something hard, the tired that comes after. The tired that lives in the body after it finally puts down something heavy and realizes how long it has been carrying it. My phone had 42 new notifications when I checked it that evening. I read through them methodically, the way I review project communications, not looking for emotion, just for information. My mother had moved from anger to something more considered. I've been thinking about what you said, about strength meaning you could have less. I need you to know that was never my intention. Not, that was never true. Just, that was never my intention. I noticed the distinction. My father sent one message that stopped me. I want to apologize. I should have called you before your mother sent that text. I knew it wasn't right. I should have said so. I read it twice. It was not a complete apology. It was not an acknowledgement of every year and every dollar and every time he had stood quietly while the pattern continued. But it was the first time he had ever said I knew it wasn't right. The first time he had admitted, directly, to me, that he had seen it and done nothing. That was something. Not everything. Something. I did not respond that night. Destiny called on the 4th evening. I was on the deck with tea, watching the mountains go from green to blue to the particular dark that happens in the mountains before the stars come through. I answered. She was quiet for a moment after I said hello. Then, is it pretty up there? Yes, I said. Another pause. I thought about what you said, she started, on the phone, about me not having to think about it, about there always being someone. I waited. I think I've known for a while, she said, that you were doing more than you should have been. I think I let myself not look at it directly because looking at it meant I had to do something different, and I didn't know how. That's honest, I said. I got a job, she said, last week, at a design studio. It's entry level, it's not much, but I did it without asking anyone for help. I just want you to know that. I looked at the dark outline of the mountains. Good, I said. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, she said. I wanted you to know that I heard you. And I'm trying. We talked for 20 more minutes about small things. Her job, my hike, the fire pit situation. At no point did she ask me for anything. That absence was more meaningful than anything she said. I came home on Monday. My apartment looked the same. Atlanta in September. The light through my windows at 6 in the evening. The sticker on my dashboard that nobody in my family has ever asked about. The particular quiet of a home where you have slowly and deliberately built a life that is yours. 2 days after I got back, I drove to my parents' house. I want to be clear. I was not going to reconcile. I was not going to perform forgiveness in exchange for peace. I was going to say the things that needed to be said in person, because some things should not be said through a phone screen, and I am, at my core, someone who prefers to be looked at when they are being honest. My mother answered the door. She looked older than she had a week ago, which is what stress does, and she stepped back to let me in without saying anything pointed, which told me she had thought about this. My father was at the kitchen table. Destiny was on the couch. All three of them looked at me with the particular expression of people who are not sure which version of me they are about to encounter. I sat down. I put the booking confirmation on the table, highlighted the copy I had brought that morning to Blue Ridge and back. I want to say a few things, I said, and I'd like to say them without being interrupted. Can we agree to that? My mother nodded. My father nodded. Destiny looked at her hands. I have been funding this family in ways nobody has ever named out loud, I said. The mortgage help. Destiny's rent, the car, the programs, the money that moved from my account to yours or hers over the years without any of us calling it what it was. I'm not saying this to shame you. I'm saying it because unnamed things don't change. If we can't look at what has been happening, we cannot change it. My mother opened her mouth. I'm not finished, I said. She closed it. The trip wasn't the thing. The trip was the thing that was too obvious to ignore. But the pattern underneath it has been there my whole adult life. And I participated in it. I'm not putting all of this on you. I kept saying yes. I kept absorbing. I told myself it was love, and sometimes it was. But sometimes it was just the path of least resistance, and I was the path. My father looked down at the table. I'm not cutting off this family, I said. But I am changing what I'm willing to do for it. There will be no more transfers. No more emergency coverage. No more of my resources being treated as family resources without my explicit, sober, unconflicted agreement. That is not a punishment. That is a boundary. And it is staying. Destiny said, That's fair. My mother looked at her, surprised. It is, Destiny said, quieter. It's fair. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but her voice, when it came, was steadier than I expected. I think I told myself, she said slowly, that because you were capable, it didn't cost you anything. I knew that wasn't true. It was easier to believe it was. I know, I said. I'm sorry, she said. 2 words, no qualifications, no redirections. I'm sorry. My father said, I should have been louder. When I knew something was wrong, I should have said so. I looked at them both. Yes, I said. You should have. We sat in that truth for a moment. Not a comfortable moment. Truth in a family that has been avoiding it for years never arrives comfortably. But a real one. Then my father said, Can I ask you something? Yes. The cabin. Was it? He paused. Was it what you planned? It was exactly what I planned, I said. He nodded. Good. That was the entire conversation about the trip. 3 sentences. I stayed for dinner. Not a long dinner, an hour, careful and a little stilted, everyone still finding their footing in a room where the old rules no longer applied. But real. Present. Nobody performing anything. When I left, my mother hugged me at the door. Not the compressed, obligatory hug of before. Something longer, with more weight to it. I love you, Maya, she said. I know, I said. That's not what I was asking for. She pulled back and looked at me. I was asking to be seen, I said. They're different. She held my gaze for a moment. Then she nodded. Once, slowly. I know, she said. I'm working on understanding the difference. I drove home in the dark, Atlanta sprawling around me, the sticker on my dashboard catching the light from a passing street lamp. The thing about building things for a living is that you understand something about foundations that people who don't build things tend to miss. A foundation doesn't fail dramatically. It doesn't announce itself. It shifts, incrementally, over time, until the house above it begins to show cracks, in places nobody expected. The fix is not to pour more concrete over the cracks. The fix is to go back to the foundation and look at what happened. For the first time in 36 years, my family was looking at the foundation. I didn't know yet what they would build on it. That was their work to do. But I knew what I was building. I had the blueprints. I had drawn them myself. And for the first time, every room in them was mine. Let me tell you the part I haven't said yet. There was a moment, on the second day in the cabin, when I sat on the deck in the early morning before the hike, before coffee, before anything, and I felt, briefly and unexpectedly, guilty. Not about what I had done. About what it had taken for me to do it. I am 36 years old. I have a career I built from nothing. I have a relationship with a man who knows how to be present without making it about himself. I have a savings account that is finally, after years of hemorrhaging into someone else's stability, starting to look like a future. And I had to reach 36 years old and cancel a mountain trip to my own mother's 60th birthday before I said out loud, "My resources are mine." That is what I felt guilty about. Not the consequences I let arrive. The years I spent preventing them. I think about the woman I was at 24, wiring the first emergency payment. She was not naive. She was not a pushover in any other area of her life. She was a woman who had been taught, very early and very thoroughly, that love in her family was a language, and the language was, "What can you do?" She answered the question the only way she knew how. I don't blame her. I understand her. But I am not her anymore. Here is what I want to say to you directly, because I think this story is only useful if it says something true. There is a particular kind of person in a lot of families. You probably know them, or you are them. The one who handles things, the one who gets the call when something breaks, the one whose competence gets recruited, whose stability gets borrowed, whose success gets quietly redistributed toward whoever needs it most this week. And there is a sentence that family uses for this person, over and over, in 100 different forms. You understand. You're so strong. You can handle it. You always come through. These sentences sound like compliments. They are not compliments. They are a system. They are a way of explaining why you get less. Not because you deserve less, but because you can survive less. And survival has been confused, for a very long time, with not needing. You need. You just learn not to say so. I am not telling you to blow up your family. I am not telling you to cancel the trip, transfer the booking, and let the chips fall where they may, though sometimes that is exactly the right move. I am telling you this. At some point, the thing that looks like generosity becomes something else. It becomes an advance payment on a debt nobody is keeping track of except you. And the moment you stop paying it, the moment the transfer doesn't come through and the call goes to voicemail, you will learn very quickly what your contribution was actually worth to the people receiving it. That information is painful. It is also, if you let it be, the most clarifying thing you will ever learn about the relationships in your life. Because the people who love you actually love you, not just your function, will be the ones who, when you finally say no, "This is mine," will say back, "You're right. I'm sorry. How do I do better?" And the people who don't will say, "I can't believe you're being so selfish." Both answers tell you everything you need to know. 3 months later, I was at Simone's baby shower on a Sunday in December, standing in a room full of women who had known me in various configurations for the past 12 years, watching Simone open a gift with that particular expression of someone who is very happy and also profoundly tired, and also somehow both at once. She opened the box. I'd brought a baby monitor I had spent an unreasonable amount of time researching, because that is how I show up for people I love, and looked at me across the room with an expression I will not try to describe, because I don't have the right words for it. Later, when the party had thinned to the 6 of us who always stayed until the end, she sat next to me on her couch and said, "You seem different." Different how? She considered it. Like you take up more space. "I haven't changed my square footage," I said. "Not physically." She looked at me. "Like you're actually in the room, instead of managing it from the outside." I thought about that. "That might be the truest thing anyone said to me this year," I said. She laughed. Put her head on my shoulder for a moment. Then, "How's your family?" "Adjusting," I said. "My mom called twice last week just to talk. Not to ask for anything. Just to talk." "That's new." "Very," I said. I didn't quite know what to do with it. "What did you do?" "I talked back," I said. "For like 45 minutes. About nothing important. About her garden and my project and what I've been cooking. Just talked." And it was nice," I said. "Weirdly nice. Like talking to a person instead of a system." Simone smiled. "That's what family's supposed to feel like," she said. "I think I'm learning what that feels like," I said. 36 years in. On the drive home, I stopped at a light on Peachtree and looked at the sticker on my dashboard. The logo from my first project. Nobody in my family had ever asked about it. Nobody had ever said, "What is that? Tell me about the first thing you were proud of." I made a note to myself, sitting at that red light. Next time I see my mother, I'm going to tell her about it. Not because she asked, because I'm going to start occupying my own life loudly enough that the people in it have no choice but to notice. Not for their sake. For mine. The light changed. I drove home. And for the first time in longer than I can name, I was looking forward to what came next, not because the hard part was over, but because for once, I was actually there for it. All characters, situations, and events in this story are fictional, created entirely for the purposes of dramatic storytelling entertainment, and emotional reflection. Any resemblance to real persons or events is coincidental. This story is intended to explore themes of family dynamics, invisible labor, and the difference between being needed and being valued.